For the latest, we can cross live to Felix Light of the Moscow Times. Felix, what do we know about these exchanges of fire today?
Well, these exchanges of fire are not as such a novelty. The ceasefire line in Ukraine has always been very, very fragile and very, very prone to sort of these kind of violations. But I think the timing and the specifics of this case are quite disturbing. The specific position that we've seen shelled today is Stanция Luhanska, which is one of the only crossing points between these sort of separatist-occupied parts of eastern Ukraine and government-held territory. Moreover, the timing sort of coincides with the broader worry that despite Russia's more conciliatory noises in the last couple of days, Russian military equipment and soldiers are not being withdrawn from the border. So there is a sense that these pro-Russian separatist forces in the Donbass, who are very, very, very integrated into Russian military command structures, are being sort of are allowing themselves to sort of adopt a hostile posture to Ukraine that really throws off some of the diplomatic cooling that we've seen in the last few days. But I think we will have to sort of observe what happens on this disputed frontier with quite some attention in the next few days.
As you mentioned, Russia says it's pulling back troops from the Ukrainian border, but the U.S. refutes this. To what extent can we trust the Kremlin here?
Well, on the one hand, the idea of a pullback would cohere quite strongly with Kremlin rhetoric at the moment. After a sort of very fraught weekend when we saw sort of widespread fears of some kind of war, very bleak noises coming out of the Kremlin in terms of the evacuation of its embassy in Kyiv, more recently we've seen a much more conciliatory tone coming out of the Kremlin. We've seen Vladimir Putin at his joint press conference on Tuesday with the German leader Olaf Scholz commit to diplomacy and say that Russia does not want a war. But at the same time, the proof of this really is in the pudding. And from what we see from sort of open source intelligence, we are simply not seeing those Russian troops come back from the border. We may have seen some units, but there are an enormous number of soldiers deployed on that border, anything up to about 150,000. So any sort of any withdrawal would, I think, need to be meaningful for sort of this crisis to run out of steam. And right now, we're simply not seeing that.
All right, Felix Light reporting live from Moscow. Thanks for that update, Felix.